Hi, this is James Walker with Surfing the Change, and I'm here with Jennifer Jacoby, and she's going to give us a quick little background on who she is and what planetary system she comes from. But we're going to share a little bit of her wisdom today, and I'm really looking forward to it. She's a dear old friend, and here we are. So, Jennifer, please introduce yourself and your background.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lynn Jacoby, and I'm a soul midwife, shamanic druid priestess. I specialize in Celtic mystical practices and techniques. I've been studying mysticism and Celtic mysticism for over 30 years this time around, a heck of a lot longer if you count the rest of the lives. But and I've had a healing practice for almost 25 years now. Been teaching Celtic mysticism and shamanism for close to 30 years. And I have a practice, Circle of Healing Arts is my handle. Mm-hmm. And James is an old friend, and it's always fantastic to sit and chat with him and dive deep into the spirituality.
We go way back.
Yes, we do.
Way back. So with that, what do you want to get into today, being that this is the new year that we're embarking upon right now? And how does that look? And with your teachings and wisdoms that you study and share, how does that communicate to the rest of us?
Sure. Well, this is a new year in many ways. So it's January on the Julian calendar, Gregorian calendar, which means we've just come into Julian New Year. But in the Celtic calendar, New Year started back in November. The Celtic Wheel of the year runs from November through the end of October, right? So, but we're still in that first season of the year. We're in the season of Samhain, that season of gestation. We're still in that womb, beautiful womb of the mother, right? Letting go of the old and also making space for the new, drinking in the new light at winter solstice that arrives to rejuvenate us, re-illuminate us, and basically plug us into the vibrational creative cycle of this particular yearly cycle, this yearly turning, right? But we haven't come out of the womb yet. We're still there. So it is still that very much that space of the new. And then because everything runs in threes in the Celtic tradition, right? 3 is the sacred number, the number of creation, the vibration of creation in the Celtic tradition. We also are in a new year, galactically speaking, and we're just in the early stages of that new year.
And how long does that new year go for? This is important.
Well, that year, so we look at the wheel of the year here on this planet Earth. That's roughly a 365 or 13 moon cycle, right? 365 days or 13 moons, depending upon how you look at it. That's 1 year here on planet Earth, but galactically speaking, it's about a 26,000 year cycle. So it's a pretty long wheel of the year, right? You break that into half, that's 13,000 years. You break that into quarters, 6,500 years, right? So just one season is 1 quarter. That's 6,500 years, 6,500 years, right?
So it's just a small bit of time. So.
It's a little bit of a span. So no matter where you are in that galactic wheel of the year, whether you're at the beginning, a quarter or a middle, you really can't see the entire cycle. It's just too big, right? And so that's part of it. I mean, here we are at the beginning of this solar year, and we're still in that womb space. We can feel the new light arriving to invite us into the dance of this yearly earthly cycle of creation, this yearly turning right here on planet Earth. But we even can't envision what that looks like from here. Like, we have some ideas. That's why people make resolutions at this time of year. And then they get to the end of the year, December, and they're like, wow, I didn't do any of those.
Right.
Because the pathway of creation that sang them in through this year didn't take them in those directions, right? What were you going to say?
Well, I just was listening to what you're saying. So back to the galactic, we are at the beginning.
Yeah, I was coming back there.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, we are just at the beginning. So depending upon how you look at it, some people look at, the year 2000 as kind of being the entry point into the new galactic year. But if you look at it astrologically, We've really just stepped into it around 2020.
Interesting.
It's really, if you start to look at where we were astrologically, we really didn't hit the Galactic New Year until really kind of 2018, 2020.
What about, can I ask you then,
Yeah,
with the
sure.
correlation between the Mayan calendar being
Yep.
2012, and there was
Yes.
so much misunderstanding on that, first of all, a lot of misunderstanding.
Yeah. Well, because
That,
we've forgotten how to read that calendar, right? The people who knew how to read that
yeah,
calendar aren't around anymore.
yes.
But that's
So within
also
your Celtic background,
right.
how does that play out?
So the Mayan long count, the way I've come to learn it and the way it's been explained to me through people that I know who work with it, but also through my own teachers from the other world, is like that was one galactic turning. The Mayans had the capacity to scry, to look clearly, to divine the major trends and pathways of a galactic year. And so they would do that as advice to, keep them on track with in this one cycle of creation that is so massive from the perspective of a given lifetime or a given civilization, right? So it was a way of kind of steering and knowing where you were within that bigger wheel of time. And so here, looking at it now, looking at it more through the lens of my Celtic teachings and the Celtic traditions, like we're just in that Samhain phase galactically. So we're in that womb space. You could look at 2012 as being an entry point, right? As being the time where you cross that boundary. And then there's this period of letting go before we actually start to really do the unraveling work. Because part of the work that we do in Samhain, at the beginning of Samhain, is we leave the old year behind, right? That old impetus is gone, and we sink back down into the earth, into the womb of the mother. And we gestate anew. But before we can start the gestational process, we have to shed. We have to sort through. That first moon turning of Samhain is really this place of sorting through. What have I done? Where have I been? What no longer serves me? What doesn't take me forward, right? And being reminded of the old stories is kind of like why we gather around when we have these seasonal holidays and we tell family stories, right? You tell the stories that everybody knows. It helps us remember who we are. It helps us remember who we've been, so that we can also say, is that still what I am? Does that still offer me purpose? Does it still anchor me in truth? And if not, how do I let it go so I can hear the new truth? So I can dive into my heart and I can hear again the song of my heart song, my Oran Cree, the song that the sacred uses to sing me into existence and to keep me in existence, flowing through the dance of co-creation. Can I hear that voice? We spend these 3 months of Samhain listening to that voice, and that first month and a half, moon turning a half especially, because the new light arrives at the winter solstice, plugs us into the new turning. It doesn't sing us out of the womb yet, but it's like our battery's on empty, because we've spent it all in the last year, in the last cycle. And then we've gone through this first moon turning, letting go of the stuff that doesn't take us forward from here. So then the new light arrives at the winter solstice, recharges us. Like we're a rechargeable battery that the universe goes, okay, I know you're on empty.
So
let me plug you in.
Does that mean that we're going to be recharging for 6,500 years?
Well, no, because 6,500 years is an entire quarter of the wheel, right? And so that moment is boom, right? Winter solstice
so still
is
200, 300.
3 days, right? But yeah, that's right. In the
200, 300
the
years.
bigger picture of the galactic wheel, that's several hundred years. Yeah. So just that moment of recharging that happens here.
So we've got a bit of recharging to do here, folks. Yeah.
But we also have, before that recharge happens, we've got 200 or 300 years, a couple thousand years actually. If that quarter is 6,500, 1/3 of that is 2,000 some.
Right.
So you got a good 2,000 years of just shedding, letting go.
Yeah.
Unraveling, letting go of the old, disconnecting from the old way of being, right? And basically coming back to neutral, or at least getting to the point where you're actually empty and primed and ready to receive the new. And that's where we are.
Okay. Well, I'm also hearing this right now too. Is that at the same time, there's this letting go taking place. That doesn't mean that you still don't move forward with your work,
Correct.
whatever it is that you're trying to do
Correct.
on this planet.
Correct.
You still want to take your passion and your purpose and fuel that outwardly, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, I'm not supposed to do anything. I'm just supposed to be.
No, that's not it at all.
Okay.
I mean, it's an active process. You know, when you clean your closet, you don't just sit there and be like, okay, closet, clean. No, you have to go through.
I haven't gotten
You have
to
to
that
do the
level yet,
work,
but I'm
right?
working on it.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Snap the
Like
finger.
little Tabitha, like wiggle your nose.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
No, this is an active process. And so, but it's also important. And remember, you're not only walking in that galactic wheel, you're walking in this wheel of this earthly cycle too, right? And you're working within the earthly year of you from wherever your birth date is, right? To your birth date. That's your own personal annual year of creation, right? So it doesn't mean that you're in a space of not doing anything, of just sitting around. This is an active process, but understand that everything that you do here and now in this moment is also about carrying you out of the old and toward the new, making space toward the new, right? Which is why people are moving through these transitionals. They're bumping up against these hard questions. Who do I want to be? What do I want my life to look like? Am I content with the pathway that I've been on? Right? Does the pathway that I've been on nourish me? Right? These, especially right now, while we have Mars retrograde with Pluto hanging out there just pouring kerosene on the campfire for Mars to just go, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? What do I want?
Some marshmallows.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a roast.
But this is where we are. And you have to remember that we do this. It's a beautiful space. It's a sacred space of creation, but it's also a space that is at the beginning point. And there's a whole lot of a whole long way of the journey ahead of us. And it's a journey that we can't see because we don't know what the energies are that carry out further through that wheel, right? We can only work where we are.
The more intuitive you are, the more strength your GPS system is going to provide for you on how to move forward, what to do. I mean, obviously I know there's a lot of, I'm very optimistic in the direction that we're going now. Doesn't mean there won't be some hiccups along the way, but I feel very optimistic with the direction that Gaia is going to be going, and humanity as itself, is that there's more responsibility now than ever before, I believe, to find out what your passion and your purpose is and to really get to that instead of hiding out. Hence me coming out with Surfing the Change and starting this global conscious community thing. It's about building those platforms for people or that work so that you can get the attraction of whoever it is you're here to work with and help to lift that vibration on this planet. What do you think to that?
Well, I don't think the responsibility is any different. I think the responsibility is the same no matter where you are along the wheel. We are here in co-creation with the divine, with the sacred. And that responsibility to show up wherever you are on the wheel is always there. But what's different is we're in this space that is asking us, what is it you bring to the table? What is it that your soul is here to bring to the table? And what does that look like? How do you offer that, right? And maybe that is building platforms, and maybe that is doing podcasts, and maybe that is doing healing work or community healing circles, but maybe it's just tending your own garden too, right?
Well, we need to eat.
Okay, yeah, your physical garden, but I'm also meaning your metaphysical garden.
I'm with you. I was just playing.
It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be stamping out, carrying shining out, putting out reels and putting out, YouTube channels and whatever else. If that's not where your soul is being called to
100.
show up.
Yeah.
So I just want to say to those of you who are like, I don't want to do that. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's not your work in this particular moment, and that's okay too.
And that goes back to finding your passion and your purpose, and as you said, your play in the game right now. So.
And listening to your heart song. Come back to your heart song. One of the best bits of advice that my allies offer in this moment, and I hear it over and over and over again with people, is right now you're in this space of mystery. Trying to look down the road, you cannot see it. It is because there is too much that is moving and shifting at this point. The best guide that moves you through these spaces of uncertainty, these spaces of divine mystery, is your own heart song. Develop a practice that allows you to sit and listen to your heart. Put your hands over your heart, put your hands on your pulse points, whatever it is. Ask the question that you have and let your own heart sing you the answer, because that will never lie to you. Your heart song is your heart song for a reason, right? It is what, like I said, it is the song that the sacred uses to sing you into existence, to sing you through a co-creative cycle. And it will always be there for you. It will always guide you forward, truly.
But working on listening as best I can too. Got to hear clearly.
And that's it. Like, no matter whether you're a beginner or whether you've been doing this a while, there are still times where you're like, okay, time out. I think I got to go sit and tune back in because I've lost the song.
Right.
I can't hear it. Whether it's, the demands of your life, whether your practice takes you into spaces that, you didn't really expect to walk into, whatever it is, that check-in moment with your heart song, it's vital.
Yeah, I agree.
It's vital.
And because it's, as I heard it said once before, is enlightenment is a messy process. And the more you wake up to who you are, the more stuff you're stirring up too, which, there's a lot of shedding that you were saying, and that internal process, it can be quite a journey.
Well, cleaning the closet's a messy process. Like, think about it. You got to drag all that stuff out, sort it out. You got a box for what goes to storage. You got a box for what goes to donation. You got a box for what goes to trash. Like, it's a messy process, but it's needed. It's needed.
A lot of gut checks.
We all have to do it. Yeah.
A lot of gut checks, and finding out, what is, who's supposed to be in my circle and what's not supposed to be in my circle. And that's something that is hard for us to do, I think, is moving out of our circles that we've been tethered into for so long.
Comfortable in.
Yeah, comfortable and painful at the same time, but it's all so you stay in it because you don't know what else there could be outside. And so a lot of people, I think, like with family or friends or their work, this is what I do, this is what I know, and they'll stay in it, regardless of how painful that process is for them.
In the healing process, we talk about that a person will remain in pain until the pain of remaining is more than the pain of changing. I know you and I've talked about
that.
But it's very true, and it's true for us individuals as well. We stay with what's familiar because it's familiar. We know it. Even when we have that little nudge that says, this doesn't nourish you anymore, right? This is becoming toxic to you. Like, you need something else. It's kind of like, a plant that's been put in a pot, right? It'll continue to drink from that soil even once that soil no longer nourishes it, no longer allows it to grow the way it needs to grow.
It needs to be replanted.
And it needs to be repotted. It needs fresh soil, new soil, different soil in order to grow, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, so in a more human experience for people out there that are listening, is that when you're going through these changes, and I believe it's getting louder and louder, the changes. And there was an old quote from a Mayan elder I used to listen to, Carlos Barrios. He was an Eagle clan out of Guatemala, and he was a speaker who was able to travel around the world and speak out so that we could hear what the Mayan elders in this location were trying to share with humanity. And this was back in early 2000s, I believe. But one of his quotes that stuck to me ever since I heard it was, if we hear the whispers, we won't have to hear the screams. Right. I feel that within my own self, if I'm not doing something that I should be doing, or if I'm, whatever the case, I hear that it's like when you're parenting, you start off very calm. I asked you nicely, don't do that. And then the volume slowly continues to go up.
Don't do that. No.
I said, stop. It's this. And that happens inside of us too with
Yes.
our own guidance,
Yes.
I believe,
Mhm.
because I've heard it plenty of times.
And with our guidance, our otherworldly guidance, our guidance from soul, from spirit, from the
Mhm.
divine, saying, "Oh, don't do that.
Mhm.
Oh, don't do that.
Mhm.
No, 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 really, I mean it.
Mhm.
Don't do. No, don't
Yep.
do that.
Now there's a health problem.
And now I'm going to smack you." Yeah.
Exactly. Health problem, crisis,
Uh-huh.
something happens.
Right.
Yeah. So isn't that, I just love how that if we listen to the whispers, we
Yes.
won't have to hear the screams.
But
Now,
listening to the whispers also requires that we have some kind of time during the week that we show up just for ourselves.
Mhm.
That we have that time where we sit down and listen to our heart song, where we listen, what is it? What is the wisdom that my soul has for me today? What is it that I need to hear and understand this day? And it literally needs to be a daily check-in. It's not just about getting up, doing your meditation, sitting, being quiet,
Mhm.
right? It's also about taking that time for you, whether it's at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, middle of the day, wherever it is that works for you. But that space of saying, hey, okay, I'm listening. What are the whispers I need to hear? So they don't have to become the crises, right?
Right. Right.
But
Try
it's an
it.
active process.
Most definitely.
It's an active process.
And we won't fail at it because it will get our attention.
Mm.
And that's a given.
Yeah.
And it's what you're trying to do is listen to, as you're saying, that song, the heart song,
Yeah.
at earlier and earlier stages, so it doesn't have to get so messy.
Correct.
And so
to
what are we?
develop your own sensitivity to hearing it,
Yes.
and your commitment to showing up, your dedication, your devotion, and your diligence. My allies talk about this all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Say that again.
Your dedication, your devotion, and your diligence. Right?
Okay.
In your relationship with your soul and in your relationship with the divine. When you make the time to sit and listen and to show up every day, yeah, you hear it. So you develop your own sensitivity to being aware of it, to hearing it. You head off the crises because you hear it as whispers. But then the other thing that happens is you get really savvy to being able to sense and perceive the wisdom as it's arriving.
Yes.
So it even comes before you have to ask for it.
You recognize the signs.
Yeah. Well, no, it arrives and you're like, oh, there it is. I didn't even have to ask for it.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I see
say
what you're saying.
You're reaching to get that thing out of the refrigerator that's really toxic to you, right? Or whatever. Or you're getting ready to go out to meet friends. And instead of having to come out and have a flat tire so you don't go meet them, as you're reaching for the keys, the wisdom is there. Oh, this is not for me. Put the keys down, text your friend, I'm so sorry. I can't be there.
Instead of pushing through.
Instead of having the flat tire or getting into the accident, pushing through and ending up in some kind of crisis on the other side of the exchange.
You know, you just made me think of something that it's just been a lifelong thing that I've been working on. Is we hear so often about, just you need to surrender, you need to surrender, you need to surrender. But you also need to take action. And I think it's knowing when to take action and when to take surrender. That is like the ultimate constant tuning in of knowing when to push and when to be still.
Surrendering doesn't mean relinquishing your sovereignty. It doesn't mean stopping to think, to be engaged, to be in conscious relationship. What surrendering means is being willing to hear the input, whether you want to or not, right? Like whether it's something that you're like, oh, that's good news. Yay, I want to hear that. Or if it's that news that says, put those keys down, you're not going anywhere. This is not for you, step away. And you're like, but I like these people. Put your keys down, step away, this is not for you. But I want to do this. I want to go to this thing, whatever it is, right? Surrender is being willing to hear the advice, to receive it, to stand there with your keys and then make that choice.
You're going to face it.
You understand, you're making the choice, right? It's still an active process.
Yes.
It's not an abdication. You still drive the car of your life and you are still responsible for the choices that you make.
No getting around that one.
No.
Got scars to show and prove it.
The debrief shows up at the end of the lifetime, whether you want it or not.
Yeah, it's there. It's real.
But and also understanding that in that moment, coming back to this, we're in this space of the mystery where you just have to make peace with not knowing. with the not knowing, right? Even as you reach for those keys and that message comes and you're like, but I like these people. Put the keys down, step back, this is not for you. But I want to do this. Put the keys down, step back, this is not for you, right? Trusting in that, trusting in the relationship that you've crafted with the sacred, trusting in the knowledge that is coming to you, and also understanding that in this moment, Spirit sees something that you don't, that you can't, because you are in this space where you can't see 2,000 years down the road.
That's so awesome. I just get
You can't.
mind blown when you think about how large these cycles are.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do the Gregorian calendar, but when you
Right.
talk about these larger Kali Yuga, the Mayan calendars, the
Galactic calendar,
the
yeah.
Galactic Wheel. I mean, it's just like,
the Galactic
oh
New Year.
my gosh.
It is mind-boggling. 26,000 years. It's a really long time.
Especially with these bodies that only go, you're doing really good 120. I mean, that would be, yeah. So what else do you see for this year that we're moving into that you feel you can share with on the direction that we're going, or what's happening, whether it's as an individual level or as a planetary level?
So you were saying earlier that you're really encouraged about what you're seeing and where you see humanity going, where you see the changes going. And I can understand where some people would be like, man, I don't know what you're looking at, right? Understand, we're in this space where the old has to fall away. We are literally in that space of letting go of the old, stripping away the old. We can't even see the horizon of what the new might be looking like. We cannot at this point where we are in the beginning of this galactic wheel, right?
Is it fair to say, though, it's still yet to be determined?
Yeah, we haven't lived it. Even the new impulse energy hasn't even arrived, right? So we don't know what that's going to look like. Like, we're still in that space of just of stripping away, of remembering, of contemplating, of considering where we as individuals might like to go in this galactic wheel, right? So again, it's coming back to that, being comfortable in the mystery. This is not a space that Western society teaches us to be. It's always set your goal, and then you look at your steps that take you to get to that goal, and you stick to that, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, instead of being like, I'm in this space of the mystery where I know something is going to happen. I know something is going to unfold, and I know that I can't see it in this moment, but in this moment, this feels right. My heart says this is right, and trusting in that. Even if it looks like it might be taking you somewhere that you're not really sure about, but trust that space of this feels right, this aligns, my heart says yes. And trust also that because so many choices have yet to be made down the road, as messy as this moment looks, you still got a good place to go to if you choose it, right? And that's, I think, a lot of when I hear you say, I'm really encouraged by what I see happening right now. It's like you have to look away from the mess. You have to look away from the falling away and see the ground that's being cleared for something new.
For me, I mean, to be more on top of what you're saying, I mean, I follow a lot of things, and to see some of the things that I've been aware of that are now being called on and things are being removed, I see very positive, because now there's light being shown on, say, sex trafficking for one, and all the pedophilia that's been going on for a long time, thousands of years, right? And we're finally starting to see attention being drawn to that, and you're seeing high profile people being finally taken down a little bit at a time. It's like the cracks in the dam, if you will, are finally starting to break, and you're starting to see this water building up on the other side, which could take another 300 years. But the point of it is that we're starting to see that
it's a shift.
That changing of the guard is what I call it, is happening. And I see it taking place in multiple levels. The healthcare system's another one. It's an absolute mess. But I think that when things get to such an extreme, the divine creator is always working on recorrecting those things. But at what point does that take place? And I believe now that we're moving into this period, be that it may be 13,000 years. I mean, that at least now, I mean, it could still get a little bit more intense because we're still on the cusp of coming out of that. And darkness tends to grab on tighter when it's being pushed out. So I tend to see a lot of amazing changes and transformations getting ready to unfold. That's just me. But you know, I always like to hear everyone else's points of view, because everyone comes. I mean, even though we're from this large soul family and some of us are really close and go way back, I mean, we still communicate things a little bit differently, which is the whole point of sharing.
Right.
And that's the beauty of having these moments, is listening to, like, you know, you're coming from this different cultural wisdom, and then being able to share that outward for others to hear, I think is so viably important. And it makes it so much more interesting, because then I hear it over here, and I hear it over here, and I hear it over here. And then when you overlap all of those different conversations, you start to see these nuggets of truth that pop up, you know, like, oh, that's real.
Right.
There's something there
There's
that's
something
more
there.
than tangible. I can actually touch it, feel it, and I'm seeing it unfold on the planet.
Right. And even astrologically speaking, like, we've been in this corridor of transformation, of stripping away, of rebirth since about 2019. And it really moves until about 2026 in a ways. But coming up this March 2025 is one of those spaces where we're starting to move out of that. We're starting to relieve. It's kind of like, one of the ways my teacher talks about it is, you've been in this phase. You know, when you take that sponge and you wring it out, that's where we've been. We've been wringing stuff out, right? And everybody has been impacted by it.
Yeah,
everybody
definitely
has felt it.
I've definitely felt
right?
that.
I mean, I'm sure every listener out there is like, oh yeah, I know what she's talking about, right? It's like, this is where we've been. We've been in that space where this divine is going, let's get that out of there too. Right. We don't need that anymore, right? And you need to make the choices that help you let that go, or that take you into the cycle of pain because you hold on, right? And as we're moving through, as we come through March of this year, we kind of get a slackening of that. The outer planets are shifting into new territory. We're getting a new galactic container, right? The cosmic fishbowl, the energies of our beautiful cosmos, as they hold us, are starting to change. And so that opens for us new energies to create with, right? It's like moving from one playground to another playground, because now the energies that are flowing and holding us, bathing us in the container, are different. And as we get to the end of this March, we get another release period. And we come into an actual beginning of even being able to contemplate, so where do I go from here, right? Like, between now and March, we're really being asked, the cosmos, the beautiful cosmic energy is asking you, who do you want to be? And how do you want to live? Like, what do you value so highly that it's absolutely essential to you? Like, this is where we are. Yeah. But it's not the point of necessarily choosing it and jumping into the new thing. It's about going, oh yeah, I have to have this in order to live and be happy.
So maybe what you're saying more is the cultivating of the awareness of what it is you want to do right now. This is the birthing, the gestation period. That's what you're talking about in the beginning.
You know what this is? This is the conversation where you go to the pub or the cafe with your friend and you're like, man, I don't know what it is. Nothing's working. I don't know what to do. I'm totally unhappy. And your friend's like, well, if you could create your ultimate life, what would it look like? That's where you are. The universe is asking you, if you could create your ultimate life, what would it look like? What is it that you want your life to be? And that's where we are between now and March. Okay. And then we get
shift the gears.
And then you get to actually play, right? So understand that some of this like, I can't take this anymore, is actually this conversation that you're having with the divine right now as to, what do you value? What do you want to be? What do you want your ultimate life to look like? Right.
So it's a deep self-reflection phase right now too.
Yeah. Part of that stripping away and making space for the new.
And, you know, as much as we don't like the pain and the shadows or the darkness, at the same time, I still find them to be probably some of the best teachers for us, because they really get our attention. And no matter how much we try to push away stuff and not look at this, or I don't want to deal with that and stuff, eventually those things become so overwhelming that it's in your face and you have to deal with it. And that is back to the pain to remain the same.
Right.
Outgrows the pain to change, then you
Right.
leap.
Right.
And that's, I mean, those are pivotal moments for every human being, is those moments that the pain gets so intense, whether it's physical, I mean, or emotional, or all the
Psychological.
above, you know,
Mhm.
because it's usually not in one category, it's usually
Right.
in a few categories. I mean, it'd be so nice and neat if it was just one thing at a time, but usually you have a whole smorgasbord of things on your table and you're like, I can't take any more, and yet another plate shows up, you know. And those are the breaking points to where you just finally say, okay, what is it? What am I supposed to do?
But the beautiful thing about pain is,
Mm-hmm.
very much like fear as well, you know, they can be really great friends and allies for you too.
I agree.
When you choose, befriend that dragon. That's it. I remember a friend of mine was sitting behind a computer and she was like, I'm trying to slay a dragon. And I looked at her and I said, you know, maybe if you befriended that dragon, you'd go a lot further. And she came back to me later. It was like, oh my God. But it's the same thing with pain and
Right.
with fear, right? Pain is an indication that something isn't working.
Correct.
Something needs to change. Something isn't working. So if you can recognize it when it's just oh, that's not comfortable.
A tiny dragon.
A tiny whisper of pain.
Yeah.
And you can ask, so what is it that needs to change? What is this pain trying to tell me? What is this pain trying to draw my attention to? What is it trying to illuminate for me that needs tending and needs to change? Mm-hmm. And then you can actually consciously engage and make that change, and the pain goes away, mm-hmm. right? It's when you're like,
yep.
And the pain just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it smacks you over and incapacitates you, mm-hmm. right? And fear is actually another beautiful ally, because mm-hmm. fear is saying to you, hey, something really important is happening here. Pay attention. It's not trying to say to you, stop at all costs. It's mm-hmm. not saying turn and run, right? Run away. Like, right. You know, it's not. Fear is that little red light, that red flag, right? That little light that flips on and says, hey, wait a minute. Stop, slow down, pay attention. There's something really important here. Mm-hmm. There's something important happening here, and you need to walk carefully. You know, it's like those yellow warning signs on the side of the road that warn you that, you know, it's an abrupt shoulder, slippery when wet, mm-hmm. like maybe bridge on the ice or ice on the bridge.
Watch
that
out
kind
for
of thing.
Bigfoot.
Sheep crossing, whatever, right? But it's the warning. Hey, pay attention, slow down, and make conscious choices through this corridor, and then you'll be fine. That's what fear is. And it can be a huge ally, just like pain. Something needs to change, right? So when those emotions come in, recognize that these are actually part of your soul speaking to you, trying to help you navigate the beautiful terrain of your pathway in the most beautiful way possible.
Now, with your background in, it's midwifery, isn't it?
Well, I'm not technically a midwife. I'm a soul midwife.
Yeah, soul midwife.
Yeah, that's different.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure.
Because not everyone understands what that is.
Sure, a lot of people don't.
No, I understand it, but I just love the words to it.
So the soul midwife is a title that my ancestors have given to me. Mm-hmm. That a circle of my healing ancestors and that I work with gave to me. And what a soul midwife...
And they just all popped in too.
Yeah, they did, didn't they?
Yeah, whoa, yeah, that was wild.
They're all here.
Whoa, yep. Just got a head spin.
Very cool.
Uh-huh.
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow.
So it's a title that they gifted me. And it's an indication that the work that I do in this lifetime and in many, many, many lifetimes have been doing is that I help souls through the transitional spaces of their lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So when we think of a midwife today, we think of somebody who helps a woman give birth to a child. And that is certainly one transition. but it's only one. You also have the equal transition of birthing into soul out of form, right? At the end of a physical lifetime, which we call death in this field, right? Moving out of the form, letting that lifetime go, and then moving back into life as a soul. But every step along the way, there are transitions, right? There are spaces that a soul bumps up against that they need help transforming the landscape in order to move forward.
Going through the birthing canal.
And rebirth,
Yeah.
right? It is that birthing canal that is not, I mean, we think of, the reason I hesitate to say yes is because people then just again think about, oh, giving birth. But giving birth happens every time you take a breath. Giving birth happens every time you choose, I'm going to go this way, or I'm going to do this today. That's also giving birth, right? I'm going to sign up for this class. That's giving birth, right?
To a new idea.
So there are you're bringing some new shape of you into existence. Like we talk about in the Celtic tradition, the great shaping, and which the process of manifestation is taking raw energy and raw material that is shaped and reshaped and reshaped and reshaped. And each lifetime, a soul walks in a specific form, in a specific shape, right? And then they, through all of the choices and the experiences of that lifetime, they reshape and reshape and reshape. They craft a new shape. They birth a new shape. And it's those transitional spaces that I help people with.
Love it.
And that's the work I do as a soul midwife.
Okay, great. No, once again, I mean, a lot of people would use different words to describe that same experience. And that's the whole point of having you come and share your wisdom. So I love it. So what would you like to discuss right now at this new birthing moment?
Boy, I thought we just covered that one.
You want to come something that you feel is important to share. Whether it could be your own individual experiences that you're going through currently, whether it's something that you've seen happening with lots of your clients or your global level, like what right now do you feel most appropriated to talk about?
So one of the things that keeps coming up in a lot of the sessions that I've been doing, because I do one-on-one work, I do healing work, I do mentoring work as well. But one of the messages that keeps coming back is tend your own garden, right? It's tend your own garden. Like there is so much that is shifting and changing out there, and there in the society that we live in is very much structured to pull you out of you and into the noise, the stuff that doesn't get you anywhere, the stuff that upholds the old, the stuff that sucks the power out of you, right? Instead of allowing you to craft from your power. The drain, right?
The drudge, the sludge,
whatever you want to call it.
There's lots of names.
You get the idea, right?
Yeah. And you're probably living in it.
I call that the noise. There's plenty of it, right?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Just plug into any social media platform. You know, it's everywhere. Go take a walk down the street. It's there as well. And that's part of the time that we live in. That's part of the falling away, right? Like you're saying, when something is dying, it tends to be kind of loud about it these days. And what my allies, people keep saying to me, how do I? And what keeps coming back is tend your own garden. Like the only thing that you're truly responsible for as a soul in a given lifetime is your work. It is the garden, metaphorical garden of your soul, right? If it's not here, it's not yours to do. No matter who's yelling and screaming at you that this is essential, no matter what commercial is telling you that this benefits you and would be good for you and blah 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 blah. If it's not here in your garden, and there's all kinds of stuff that's going on in the world, but it's not all yours to fix. Some of that is a process for people who need that process, but maybe you don't. If it's not here in your garden, it's not yours to do. So again, it's like, come back to who you are, check back in and listen. What is really mine? What is the step? What is the way forward for me in this situation? What serves my highest good and the highest good in this moment? that is what clears the path for you
Mm-hmm.
and shows you how to show up in a given space, right? And especially when you have people telling you, you should be this, you should be that,
Or
you
you
should
should be
do
doing
this,
this,
you
you
should be
shouldn't be
doing
doing
this.
that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, right? Coming back again to your own heart song. Come back to that space. Go for a walk in the woods.
Mm-hmm. I'm out at the mountain all the time.
Or out by the river, right? Go for a walk by the river, whatever it is. Wherever the space is that makes you go, that's the space to go. And then listen, ask yourself, what is the right course of action for me? Not for anybody else, for me. And it's perfectly okay if it doesn't look at all like what anybody else is doing.
That's usually the changers. Look at history.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before we started filming.
Right.
You know, if you're paving new paths, you're going to be stepping outside of that comfort zone where everybody is, and you're trying to bravely step onto a new path. So many people are going to be like, oh my God, you can't do that.
Right.
What are you doing?
Right.
This is where we are. And you're like, no, I see something better over there.
We need you over here.
Yeah.
No.
And it's like this pulling back and forth. And it's,
Yeah.
but at the same time, that's where the innovation comes from. That's the visionaries. That's where they come from. It's stepping outside of that paradigm and having the strength and the courage to stay true to your true self and listen. And
Yeah.
that's, I think the theme of today is listen,
Yeah.
you know.
And remember that you can't see 26,000 years down the line. You can't see the culmination of this galactic year from this point on this wheel. But what you do right here, right now, at the beginning of this wheel, of this galactic wheel, determines what's possible at the end.
That's interesting, yeah.
What you do now, how you prep the land, right? How you open the soil, how you nourish the soil, what beautiful nutrients you put into the soil of this galactic wheel for you, here and now, is what determines what will ultimately be harvested at the end. But from this here, you can't see what that is. So you really have to trust.
Oh, absolutely. And that's hard.
And be okay with it looking nothing like what anybody else does.
Right.
And that's actually part of your beautiful gift, you know, because your heart song is unique. It's different from every other heart song that exists on this planet at this moment, right?
Right.
If we all had the same heart song, we'd all look the same. And you have a different heart song because the universe needs you. The divine needs you to show up in your own unique way. They need you to sing your song. They need you to sing your song back to the divine.
And I think that's important for everyone who's listening, is that all too often, and it goes back to childhood, you're stifled from what your expression, and you're told not to do this and not to do that. And unfortunately, usually the more education and the more programming you go through, the more constricted you become. And there's a point where people, and that's where your clients come from, or my clients, is they reach this brooding point of explosion internally where they can't stay the same anymore.
Yeah.
And they have to express themselves differently, and they don't even know how.
Right.
They're not even in touch with these emotions. They don't know what that is. They don't know what's going on. There's something wrong with me. And all that is, once again, goes back to this listening and being able to get vulnerable with yourself, to take those steps. And they're baby steps. It's not like you're going to go launch right out there and do something. It takes years and years of cultivation to really bring that forth. But if you start now, a little bit every day, just a little bit, start listening just a little bit,
it gets easier.
It does get easier. And the challenges and the trials that we go through, I mean, I know you and you know me. I mean, it's been it's a hell of an adventure. Yeah. It's been a hell of an adventure. But the funny thing is you get used to the adventure, you get used to the chaos, you get used to the pain and the suffering, so that, at least for me, I'm speaking, is that I can handle a lot more, and I see a lot clearer, and I hear a lot clearer. The clarity is much stronger.
Yeah.
That still doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It does, but you're able to transform it faster, if you will.
Yeah, for me, it's not that I get stronger necessarily, but for me, what it is I can see I recognize the process for what it is. So when the pain starts, I can go, oh, okay, Where am I not listening?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I not surrendering to actually hear what it is that I need to hear, right? Where is it that I'm bumping up against some rigid belief within me, some old expression of me that I haven't let go of, that needs to reshape, that needs to rebirth itself, right? And so I can engage the process. And so it's not the pain that I focus on.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, I mean, yeah, I feel the pain, but in some ways I don't, because I see it for the rebirthing process. I see it for the birthing pangs, the pains that it is.
Yes, but it's because your
And
awareness.
I can breathe through it, yeah.
But see, this is the key. Yeah. And I need to practice some of that breath work too, because sometimes it gets a little intense. But the point is that now your awareness has shifted enough to where you can recognize these things much more, and you have the practice and the cultivation of years of experience with it. That this is what I'm saying, that you're more familiar with that landscape to work with it better than someone who's been stuffing for all that time.
Absolutely.
And then when they have these things, they have an anxiety attack or a mental breakdown, or their physical body breaks down. I mean, those are the extreme forms of that. And what Jennifer and I are mentioning. It could just
be a migraine that puts you in bed. Like it's not, it doesn't have to be that extreme.
It's being able to mitigate these processes way before they get to a massive explosion.
Yeah, to engage with them and move through them, transform them. And the other thing that happens is, as you start to work this way, as you start to engage with your life in this way and tend your garden, right, you gain a bit of perspective. There's an objectivity that happens. So you don't get caught in the brambles. Oh, look at that. There's brambles. How did I step into that? What's that about? And how do I get out of it, please? Like, what is it that I need to know and understand about this so I can be free of this? Cool. Thank you. Silly me. All right, there we go, right? Or not even silly me. It's not even about that, right? There's no judgment in this space. It's the recognition we're reshaping, we're becoming. Every single one of us is a soul that is in its becoming. And that means we go through these snarls sometimes. It's not a failure. You didn't do anything wrong.
So that's another.
This is just a part of the process of reshaping.
And that's another important part is not being as hard on ourselves when we're recognizing from that point of objectivity that you're talking about. That, and I've noticed that through all these years too, is I'm not as hard on myself as I used to be, because you understand the process that you're going through. And so it's more nurturing, more supportive of whatever it is that you're trying to correct, versus, I can't believe you did that. You're so bad. You're this, you're that, and that constant mind chatter that people have playing on, that you're now scaled it back so much more that it's like, oh, you did it again. So let's pay attention, recorrect, and get back on your path. It's a much more gentler process versus, I mean, I heard someone, it was a monk,
more neutral.
A monk talking to one of his students, and he said the simple thing is that one simple horrendous act that might have taken 30 seconds could take a person's lifetime to go over, because they keep replaying it over and over and over. And it only took, say, maybe 10 seconds, and a whole life is wrapped up on that one moment, because they don't know what to do with it.
And that one moment is like a blink in that galactic wheel, or even in that yearly wheel, right? But yes, absolutely. And there's an objectivity, and it also allows, like you said, it allows more neutrality, right? Judgment falls away. You begin to recognize this is just a process. This is just a process. But it also allows you to see the beauty within the difficult.
Absolutely.
You see the pathway. Oh, this is the beauty. This is the gift in this, which also allows you to stand in the middle of chaos or the world falling, the old falling away, and be like, I am so excited. I am so encouraged. I see so much hope in this moment. Exactly. I keep coming back to this because I also know that people are very despondent about, when they look around themselves at this moment. There's a lot of people out there who are finding it hard to find hope. That is a part of, in this dialogue, in this conversation, is the hope is there when you look away from the bramble and you actually see the pathway that's opening up for you instead, right? And as you do this work, and it's not a one moment only. This is lifetimes of work. It's every day you have to make that choice to say, okay, soul, what is it I need to know today? How is it I move forward through this day? What is this pain about? And how do I let it go and transcend this? How do I reshape so that I emerge in the beauty again?
And that's being reborn every moment of every day and every second, every breath.
Choice,
yeah. So that's
every step. Yeah.
Be anew.
Be anew. Be you.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, last thing, because it's been a bit of time here, but
it has been a bit of time.
Yeah,
I kept
but we can keep going for days. I have a curious. When you go to Ireland and you do your circles,
yeah,
what is it that you guys are working with and doing? I mean, like, say if you have something going on in March, what would that look like, or just so people might be interested in maybe.
So one of the things in addition to doing healing work, and I do one-on-one mentoring work with people who are cultivating a spiritual practice or who have a spiritual practice, who have bumped up against one of these, snarly spots and are trying to find their way through. But then I also do ongoing workshops, retreats, intensives. They tend to be week-long intensives. When I go to Ireland, they are very specifically week-long intensives. Generally on the west coast of Ireland, although sometimes I do them in Kildare or out on, Achill is the west coast too. And each one focuses around a different specific type of work. So it's not like they're always the same. But
so there's different themes depending on what it is.
Depending upon what time of year. I like, because of the way I practice, I very much practice within that wheel of the year. And I like to connect into the energies of the cosmic fishbowl that are around us at the time. So I'm always, it's not me specifically, but my allies and I are always building, processes, workshops that work with the energies of the time period. But the work very much focuses around this concept of the wise woman. In our modern Western society, we really have a negative view of the older woman, right? The woman as elder. And this idea of the wise woman has very much gotten lost or demonized, bastardized. She's an old hag, she's an old crone, she's a busybody, she's a whatever. But this image, this template of the wise woman for women today, and for men as well, she's necessary. She's the voice of the woman who has moved through her maiden years, right? Who has moved through her mothership. She's grown. She's made choices around who she is and what she's becoming. She's offered nurture. She's given life and given birth, and whether that's physical birth to children or not. And then she moves past that place of being able to birth, like of shedding blood, of giving blood and nurturing her community and her landscape, and moving into that space where now she actually gets to touch into the truth of her. The eldership, the wise woman, is a space where we as women, what we would say today, postmenopausal women, right? We've done our service to society by putting everybody else ahead of us. And now this is the space where we really get to listen to our own voice and offer our own voice in some way, shape, or form. So the work is always around this connecting in with your own inner wisdom. And I tend to structure things with women. I work with men too. I do all kinds of work with men, but these retreats have very much focused around connecting with the wise woman within us. And we work with the landscape of the land. We work with the landscape of our soul in order to come into relationship with that wisdom within us, to uncover it, to dig it up out of the depths of us, and to find it again, and to learn to embrace it, to be able to walk with it in a rooted, grounded, and aligned way. Honors the truth of who we are and sings the truth of our heart song to the sacred and back again.
That's awesome.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. I remember
I do other ones too.
What about the weaving?
Weaving. You're talking about the soul weaving, the soul tapestry?
Yeah, the soul tapestry.
Yeah, so that's a little different. That's more with healing work. So what he's talking about here is the way...
yeah, please clarify. The words just popped in my head. Forgive me.
So the way I envision the soul in a physical form, whether it's an individual soul, an ancestral or as a tapestry. Okay, it's a great weaving. There are all of these threads of choices and experiences and pathways of learning that weave together to form literally a tapestry, right? Like if we would think about a carpet or a rug or a wall hanging tapestry, right? A woven thing. And each individual soul has its own tapestry. Ancestral lineages have their own tapestry. Divine lineages have their own tapestry, right? Milk lines have their own tapestry. And so when I'm doing healing work with people, places, animals, landscapes, whatever, I'm often shown the tapestry of the individual that we're working for to see where the threads of the weave have gotten knotted, distorted, entangled, and meshed with something else, right? In order to then we go in and we repair those. We untangle those knots. We disconnect those tapestries that have gotten inappropriately entangled with each other, right? In order to free the weave to flow forward in a new and empowered way. So that's really something that I do for healing work. I've only taught that once.
It sounds like an awesome class.
It's an awesome class, but it requires a really high level of diligence, devotion, and dedication.
Right.
And it requires a very special person. So Spirit always has to say, yeah, you can teach that to that person. You know what I'm saying?
So it's more of a one-on-one class that you would do that with.
It's a very small group. Yeah. That's not a retreat thing.
That's a higher level.
That's a much higher level.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. But the other types of retreats that I often teach are things like I do a lot of divining and divination work with the runes, with the Oham, with goddess cards and things like that. And so I do classes on divination. I'll do a weekend or a week-long class or a couple days a month on divination, runic divination, Oham divination. I do classes in mysticism. I have an online teaching circle, the Mystic Circle, which is on Patreon, patreon.com/the Mystic Circle.
Awesome.
Where there's monthly videos for different levels of engagement that offer practices and insights and blessings. And
All right. Yeah. So please let everyone know where to find you and on the great web.
Out in the great web. So my main website is Circle of Healing Arts, arts.net. And there's links that connect to all these other things that I'm about to tell you about.
Okay, so that's the main place to go.
That's the main one,
so
circleofhealingarts.net.
Okay.
I also have wordpress.com through Shaman's Eyes. But again, circleofhealingarts.net is the base one. I'm on YouTube. YouTube through Shaman's Eyes is my handle. I'm on Facebook through Shaman's Eyes. You find the trend, right? Through Shaman's Eyes. You can also find me under Jennifer Lynn. And then my Patreon page. So it's patreon.com/the Mystics Circle is my online teaching community.
Okay. And all that can be found at the Circle
of Healing Arts.net.
Yep. Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Always.
Thank you. All right. We'll look forward to seeing you again. Remember, this is Surfing the Change, and we'll see you out there.
Be well.
Peace.